Well, good morning, lords and ladies, and welcome back to A Morning with the Lord. We're here with our continuing guest host, Aaron.
Just keeps showing up, this fucker.
Yeah, can't get rid of him. He's probably the only reason there's been recent podcasts anyway, otherwise I'd probably be too lazy.
Well, I've got that feeling about us at the moment.
Yes, it's a bit like that. Got a few stories queued up here. Obviously there has been some followings on from the war in Ukraine. We're starting to feel some effects as fuel prices rise here in Australia and around the world.
Yes. Lovely stuff.
Yes, lovely stuff.
Hope you work just to pay for your fuel.
Because that's what it is going like. It's up, over $2 something now.
Yeah, $2.20 for premium, $2 standard for standard fuel.
So we'll be covering at least a story or two about that. Covering, I think we've got something up about Ukrainian war, of course. And there was some other stuff in the world news I think we had up. What was it? It's not a story that. Petrol prices, Australian, Fiji, and something to do with the expanding of the Australian Army and our plans in the future.
Leading towards Fiji,
Yes. Well, we're pretty tight with those whole group. But we're going to start today's podcast off at least listening to a bit of a Russell Brand video where he describes some of the World Health Organization plans and some other plans that are in the works for, of course, without having to sound too conspiracy related, the microchipping of people and what the future is going to look like from a societal point of view. And yes, apparently, we're not going to cover it too in depth, but I just heard on a news site that apparently Daniel Radcliffe is set to play Wolverine. And there is some conflicting rumours. He's obviously come out apparently and said that he doesn't think so, but there seems to be a lot of rumours to the contrary and fan support for the idea, which I think, I don't know if I'm happy with this decision. I don't know if I like the idea of Daniel Radcliffe being Wolverine.
Yeah, no. What's he going to do? A bit of an Expelliarmus spell towards fucking...
Well, that's what I mean. He's going to have to bulk up. I mean, Hugh Jackman was at least pretty tank.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't as bulky as Wolverine in the cartoons still. Like, we're not going to get that sort of level.
Not unless you put a rock there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be a short rock. Yeah. Maybe, who was that wrestler? The Mexican lad.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, they talk about him all the time on ICP. Rey Mysterio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pull a Rey Mysterio out or something, get some mad little Mexican dude or something just tanked out. Maybe that'd work, but I don't know. I don't know if Daniel Radcliffe. But like I was saying to Aaron earlier, we do have Twilight Dude as Batman, and apparently he does alright.
Does he do the whole emo voice?
I haven't actually heard it yet. I haven't seen it, so I'm not 100% how he does. But the reports on the movie is it's not too bad, and it's meant to be Batman when he's like real young, like only just sort of starting off.
Oh, that's the one that just come out.
Yeah.
The Batman.
The Batman. Don't do much movie news here, which is surprising considering I fucking love movies, but.
Got nothing else to do but watch things.
By the time we get through general news, the fucking podcast is generally at an hour or so. 40 minutes, so I don't try and flood it too much. But here we go, I'm going to play some of this Russell Brand video and we'll stop and discuss it as it goes along and certain points are raised.
Fantastic stuff. Now let's get into some bloody news, shall we? The World Health Organization will meet with member states and reps from vaccine certification credentials groups to discuss a global vaccine certification system. Over the last 2 years, vaccine passports have become compulsory for international travel in some countries. However, different regions and countries have different standards when it comes to proof of vaccination, meaning a passport that is verifiable in one country might not be verifiable in the other. So, we need some help. Is someone going to step in? Is some centralised, non-elected, dubiously funded body going to step in and save us? The World Health Organization wants to get involved. Oh, thank you. Get involved in pulling it all together under a global system. Who among you doesn't like a global system? Who watching this isn't praying for the day where we could have one centralised government dominated by billionaires and their funds and their foundations? Yeah, then we can get all the guidance we need from the WEF, the IMF, the WHO. Just in case you don't recognise English sarcasm, that was it then. The WHO says it wants to create a trust framework. We're going to give you a trust framework. And once we got you in the trust framework, you'll have to trust whatever the fuck we tell you. Why are there so many bars on this trust framework? Can I open that door? Not without your digital ID, you don't. It's okay, we've embedded it in your hand. Beep, for trust. Beep, beep. Why is the door not opening? We don't trust you. Which will allow the verification of a vaccine passport anywhere in the world. Oh good, so you'll never be free. Co-founder of the Vaccination Credential Institute, VCI, Brian Anderson told Politico, VCI is the group behind smart health cards, which have been widely adopted in the US and have become the de facto vaccine credential standard. The WHO said that more details about the international vaccine pass would be released soon. That's alright, don't rush, we'll just wait for those terrifying WF videos. Hello, in the future, you'll sit fucking still and be happy. You won't have a penny to your name, but you'll be so pleased with yourself, sat there, drooling in front of a screen. We're going to build you a nice trust framework. Would you like that? You don't need to tell me. I don't like to pry. The Gates Foundation is the second largest contributor to the WHO. As of September 2021, it had invested nearly $780 million that year. According to Politico in 2017, the Gates Foundation has pumped more than $2.4 billion into the WHO since the year 2000. Without wishing to suggest any malfeasance, do you have any concerns that an unelected, undemocratic body such as the WHO, that are significantly funded by the Gates Foundation, have an incredible amount of influence on global policies regarding something as significant as digital ID or vaccine passports? That transcends national democracy. In effect, that is already a kind of centralised form of government. Not in an explicit and overt way, but if you consider government to be a synonym for control, and if you think that the outcomes, opinions, policies, ideas of WEF, WHO sometimes filter down in the same way that many of their apprentices, Trudeau, Putin, Merkel, Blair, Brown, end up in positions of government, that is an incredible amount of influence. I'm not suggesting that the WHO supersedes national democratic measures, but we can watch unfold, can't we, now in real time, whether or not global vaccine passports and digital IDs are implemented, and we can see how national and international media and national governments handle and convey that matter, knowing all the while for a fact that the Gates Foundation is the second largest funder of the WHO, which we can now see is where these policies and ideas originate from. Every government introducing a vaccine certification vows that their use is voluntary and no personal information will be held beyond its necessity. There you go, a vow from the government. Nothing else to worry about, nothing else to think about. Whenever
We're going to have to stop that there because it is so hard to find a point that you can actually stop. But just talking about that, like, god damn, how fucking bullshit is that going to be? Because we have in the news at the moment, it came out the other day that, like, you know, they said we are from now on to treat COVID as a flu. Like, we're not going to have to isolate, you know, it's just going to be, we're going to have to treat it as a general sickness. Because it like, I've said it on the podcast before, but like, with the severity of it, that was the only way it was going to end out. You cannot pump up something to be so fucking deadly when the numbers do not just add up with other things.
They don't justify the
They don't justify it.
person that they've imposed for it.
Yeah.
But
But
police have a lot more power now, so does the government, just for all the laws they brought in for
and since a lot of things before then, even. It's been all compiling to fucking them having a lot of control.
Yeah, now they can pretty much, they can put you in lockdown for as long as they want, and that's pretty much martial law without calling it martial law.
Pretty well. And like they, you know, just that whole, the whole thing, like you can't come out and say, we're only going to treat this as a flu, and then try and bring in this like necessary fucking chip that people have to have in them just so they can prove that they have a vaccine passport. Like a vaccine passport for something that you are only supposed to consider as the flu and no longer have to isolate for is fucking extreme. Especially when we have much more deadly viruses that are around. And
if you needed something like that for fucking polio or some shit.
well, we got rid of polio pretty well.
Yeah.
There's not much of it left.
Back when it was rampant.
Yeah,
There would have been massive uprising for fucking shit like that.
because it was just everywhere. Like that was almost like, you know, the cancer of the day. I'm sure cancer killed more people, but I bet polio was more talked about. Yeah, it was fucking pretty prevalent. Plus, it's like, you know, your tuberculosis and all sorts of stuff. I mean, we've had like, yeah, this shit is not uncommon. And to make a vaccine passport around something that is actually most likely going to be fairly common and unsevere leaves everything else that is more severe than that for them to be able to amp up afterwards. Like, this is the thing, they, you know, like I say, you know, there are more severe viruses than that out there, but that is the point, and they know this. If they were to turn around, like it's like this mosquito thing that they're going on about at the moment, the Japanese encephalitis, or whatever the fuck it's called. You know, if they were to turn around and suddenly go, like, because our government has just put fucking $2 million into buying vaccines for it and fucking shit, and there's only like 5 or 12 people fucking infected. Like, all they have to do is turn around and say, like, this shit is more deadly than COVID, and look what we had to do for COVID. We're gonna have to do this for this.
Yeah, everybody stay inside.
And they've left the spectrum so fucking wide that it could near be anything they could fucking call it for. Like, you're looking at flu symptoms and above. That's every fucking virus.
Yep.
Nearly. I mean, I'm sure there's others. I'm not a fucking doctor. But the point is, you know, we've left ourselves open to lockdowns for fucking any reason.
Yeah, but only fun times ahead.
Yeah. Should be fun. Looking forward to it. Alright, we'll get back into
Government ever gone back on a vow? But governments have been far from unanimous, even on such basics as whether you need to show the pass to enter a bar, much less on how long and by whom our intimate information will be held, owned, or overseen. New York, for one, is not expecting to mothball the technology when COVID wanes. Bought in for COVID, remains after COVID.
But this is the fucking issue, right? This is like fucking Facebook, like talking about how holding our information, all this shit, which is what they're gonna fucking do. I mean, we know 100%.
Google already does it.
Yeah, it was fucking, like, Google was originally created as a CIA fucking project to compile information on the fucking public. That was its original fucking intent when it was created. So fucking, we know that's fucking happening anyway, but now, like, this shit comes out, and, like, yes, we hear it, and it's like, we should be fucking cranky about this. If it was the 90s, people would be fucking cranky about this. But we all fucking just know this to be how it fucking is. So even though it's fucking bullshit, we
I
don't...
expect you just to cop it because the internet brings us all closer together than we've ever been. And just
And even if people whinge about it now, like even if they come out and say they're holding your data and people whinge about it for a couple of months or a year, it'll just end up keep fucking happening. They'll come out with some fucking bullshit statement. Anyway.
COVID. Bought in for a reason, for a crisis, remains after the crisis. Along with IBM, the designer, state bureaucrats are exploring how the platform could be retrofitted to verify other types of records and credentials, according to Vox. Experience with the Excelsior Pass has accelerated our thinking about digital government, said the architect of the program. I bet it's accelerated it, but we can show you documentation from 2016 that showed that these kind of programs were desired. So it was brought in for COVID, it's remaining after COVID, they're retrofitting how it could be used for, oh yeah, that's convenient, but you didn't have any plans prior to that then. Once biodata are collected and filed, cautioned Hamid Khan of the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, there's no delete button. Right, so once this thing is implemented, there is no going back. That would suggest to me that at a minimum, there should be some democratic procedure in place to ensure that it's what populations require. Now, you know that probably what would happen is that a state of fear would be generated that's so significant that people would vote, you know, oh God, we need it to help us. Because like it says, initially these things will be introduced voluntarily, but then, oh, now there's a state of emergency, so we got to keep it, and oh, we're going to apply it in this way. So without real democracy, which is the thing we're all promised and pledged, that's what we go to war for, right? Because we're a democracy. Well, in a democratic situation, what you would do is you would discuss that, and people would vote for it, and if they vote against it, you wouldn't have it. But people don't like democracy, because sometimes democracy leads to the will of the people being implemented. When biometric data, bodily attributes digitised, are married to surveillance technology, both the potential for profit and the ambitions of the techno-futurists inflate without limit. We've already seen the impact of social media, how we can mine consciousness and mould behaviour. That's before we get to the level of knowing about biodata and stuff that sort of sounds frightening and futuristic even to discuss. If anything, there is a requirement for regulation around this stuff that involves the will of ordinary people, not more measures introduced that you can't walk back. It sounds like the individual pieces are falling into place to create a kind of dystopic metaverse where you are denied access to facilities or services because you don't have enough ticks next to the right vaccines, or you don't have the right kind of credit score or social credit score. Once you put these measures in place, then people in positions of corporate and governmental power can determine how it's utilised. So my general sense would be resist it pretty vehemently from the offset. One industry and...
That's it too, you know, it's like at the moment when you got, you know, like the vaccine passports and shit just to show on the fucking macro sort of level, you will have this thing that'll, like, where it'll be every structure, like every license you will have to have fucking ticked for before you can take every job, which we have now already to an extent, depending what you're talking about. I mean, you can't drive unless you got a license, and you can't fucking work with kids unless you got the kid check and that sort of shit. So it's not going to be, like, in many respects, we got the same sort of system now. Oh, we have a fucking phone call here. Alright, my apologies. Had a little bit of a phone call. But yeah, it's going to be very much the same system. But the problem is, you know, you're going to be fucking cut out of places, and the people who choose not to get vaccinated and stuff over COVID are going to be set out. And like, while I completely believe in vaccinations, I know we have the technology to do it. We beat fucking, what was it? I'm pretty sure it was polio that we completely eradicated. And there might have been another one, might have been the measles or something, or the mumps. But like, the World Health Organization literally had to go through fucking India, like door to door, and immunise every single person. But like, this is where you come into the problem, because we have reports of like the cunts in fucking Africa who's purposely injected people with fucking syphilis just to see how it had spread. And like, when we know that scientists, like, we know 100% that has happened, it's fairly recent, that cunt's probably still alive, and like, it is very hard not to believe that anything like that could happen again. And fucking, you know, your people who don't get vaccinated and stuff fucking are going to be completely shut out. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if we go to the point of driving them off fucking the continent. You're not going to have safe zones. You're not going to, like, unless you get fucking, like, and they'll only be illegal.
And they'll still claim that vaccination's your human right, whether to get or not to get, but
Yeah,
just
yeah.
won't be allowed anywhere near people who have been vaccinated.
Yeah, which is the complete opposite of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Fucking, and like, people eat this shit up. You know, you can't fucking say neither here or there about it because they're like, oh, but we were fucking told. How much evidence do we need before we're allowed to question without being kicked off our fucking home? Like,
I think that's the thing with the government. All evidence is deniable.
yeah, but all evidence is applicable as long as they fucking decide to put it on the news. And like, the thing is, no one watches TV anymore. Who's fucking watching the news? Like, I guess everyone watches the news to a degree. But like, fuck, surely the amount of people who are actually watching a current affair and all that sort of shit. Like, we'll all hear the news because we'll all turn the TV on at some point and the news is repeated fucking every hour. You know. At least, you know, especially on the radio. Like, we're always going to hear the news, but like, fucking...
The news aren't individual little outlets telling you the truth that they know anymore. It's the truth the government knows or the government's willing to let out there.
I remember during the whole COVID shit, right, the viewership for like one of the news programs, it might have been CNN, but I'm not 100% sure, but like one of the like Fox or CNN or one of the big news groups, like television news, their viewership dropped 90%. And like, that is fucking telling. You know, if anything's telling, that is telling of what the fucking average populace actually think about what they're fucking hearing. But as long as we just sit back and let them roll out whatever fucking rule they want.
Yeah, we stand up and try and do something about it, like the Kiwis did, we get shot at.
Yeah, or the fucking Canadians, and they just close your bank accounts. You're not able to access any of your fucking money that you've worked your whole fucking life for. And like, that is the evidence right there of why the fucking chip is a fucking concern, because with no physical fucking wealth, you've got nothing to fall back on. You are completely fucking in control, like controlled by your fucking whoever tells you that you have money.
Yeah, you get a chip in your arm, you say the wrong thing to the government, and your chip is deleted. You are no longer a citizen. You are kicked out. You've got nothing. Go live in the forest, cunt.
Yeah, not on public land. You'll get fined. See, at least in like Sweden and Britain and shit, they actually, like, we're allowed to walk the creek beds. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you can walk within, I think it's 50 metre either side of the creek.
Yeah, but
Rivers and shit, because it's crown land.
other than that, you can't. But whereas in fucking like Europe and stuff, you're allowed to walk wherever you want.
Yeah, you can walk through people's properties and that, as long as you're not causing any damage or anything.
Yeah, and as long as you're walking, I don't think you can drive.
No. That's what roads are for.
Yeah. You know, it's like, if they bring this shit in, like, as much as it seems like a good idea, like, that's the thing, all this conservative shit seems like a good idea. Like, yes, it would work if you were able to make everyone fucking do it. But you're not going to be able to make everyone fucking do it, ever. And if you do, it's fucking, like, it would have to be fucking really liberal. Like, it would have to be open, otherwise you're like way into dictatorship levels.
That's pretty much where all the country's going now anyway.
Yeah, well, the whole one world thing, it's going to be one massive fucking dictatorship, and you're going to have no leg to stand on. There will be no leg to stand on, even for a country, because a country could easily be overtaken by the fucking world. Like, it is only going to take extreme measures to disagree.
Yeah, and then you disagree and your whole country goes bankrupt and someone else puts a fucking, what do you call it, a puppet fucking ruler in, and there you go.
And this is what they've been fucking... This is, like, clearly, it's fucking obvious. And that's the most frustrating thing. Like, here in Australia, when we ripped out the fruit bowl, and now with all these tensions between China and fucking Russia and us, we're not getting as much fucking fruit imported. And, like, we're running out of food. And like I've always said, a government should have only one goal in mind in the beginning. Like, the very first thing is to be able to make sure you can feed and water your fucking populace.
Yeah, be self-sufficient.
You have to be self-sufficient, because even in a fucking... What do they call our shit? Fucking the commercial... No, our commercial fucking system. Capitalist. Even in a capitalist system, you know, your profit comes from excess. You know, your profit comes from your ability to fucking deliver fucking goods. And, you know, there is always going to be your percentage of costs. And your costs are, in this respect, the amount of food that you have to feed your people. And if you do not have enough fucking food to cover your costs from the very beginning, you are running at a fucking loss. And if something goes wrong, you're fucked. Like, I don't understand how this fucking aspect of managing can be fucking put to the fucking wayside. And if it is, like, when it is put to the wayside, it's called, like, they call out fucking racist. Like, they say, no, you can't fucking, like, we need free trade with other countries, and fucking, you know, if you were trying to fucking discredit this deal that we had with China after pulling out the fruit bowl and shit, it would near be fucking considered racist, because the opposite, like, what they're trying to do is create free trade, and to oppose that would seem to be fucking, you know, fascist. But it's not fascist at all, because it is basically just trying to cover your own fucking ass before you go spending money and selling your fucking goods and buying extra shit. But they'll fucking market it the other way.
It's too late for us anyway. We already sold everything off. We were fucking...
This is like this. It's up to us and our fucking kids to have to fix this shit. You know, we're not going to be able to fix it, obviously. Like, we're going to be fucking stuck in the middle, and they'll always look at us as fucking shit cunts. But it was our parents who let this shit in. Fucking our grandparents. I don't know any fucking old person that was around my grandparents' age that would have allowed this shit if it was in their prime. No. I haven't met fucking one that wouldn't be against this. And I've always said that. Like, they're just waiting for those generations to die. I mean, there was a guy here in Tenterfield who died, and like, I was talking to one of my mum's friends about it, because I did the funeral announcement at the radio, and he was apparently the last World War II vet in Tenterfield. And like, it is absolutely telling, as far as I'm concerned. Fucking my theory that they were waiting for these fucking generations to die out has only been confirmed, because they're only doing this shit now, and you've got like us and our fucking parents and, you know, our mates from fucking school who didn't give a fucking shit about any of this, and it's all gotten away on us.
Yeah, because they were supposed to have fought for our rights for freedom and that, and then they've just slowly taken them away after.
Yeah, and we've given them away, because we had the democratic system, we had it, but like, none of us gave a shit. You know, I can remember fucking clearly, my entire life, even up until this day, having these sorts of discussions with people outside my own fucking friend group and such, you know, and some within. They'll go like, why do you care? Why is this important? It's like, well, this is exactly why it's important. You know, like I said, like my mate who was 18, he totally believed 100% if we were to go to war and our country was invaded, he wasn't going to fight, so he should be perfectly fine. The other army would act fucking, you know, correctly and not attack any civilians who weren't interested in the war. But that's not how it fucking works.
Yeah, look at Russia and Ukraine.
Look at Russia and fucking Ukraine.
Russia's been attacking more civilian buildings than they have military.
Yeah, and that's a fucking another topic we could spiel on about for a fucking extended period of time, because fucking how disgusting is it? I mean, we went, like, World War One started because some fucking royal cunt got assassinated. Just one dude. And now we are at the point where Russia is bombing fucking children's hospitals.
Yeah.
Not even just a normal hospital, a fucking children's hospital. And we're not doing shit. And I did podcast back. I covered Biden speaking about how, like, before this war started, and how he said if Russia was to attempt anything, there would be harsh repercussions, and, like, we would be at fucking war.
These harsh repercussions at the moment are just sanctions.
And fucking in the stories today, I don't know if I think we've got one up, but they were talking about China not enforcing the sanctions on Russia and kind of like letting the trade move through there without hitting them with such sanctions and that sort of shit. And America warning that if China was to do such a thing, they would fucking face harsh repercussions. And it's like, well, fucking, you warned that to Russia too, and you've done fucking nothing. You know?
Yeah, so all they're going to do against China is give them sanctions too, and what do you shit?
Yeah, like, so why are we fucking even... why even believe or think that we're going to fucking do something? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's not fucking something. It's fucking nothing. We're just sitting back, letting it fucking happen.
It's not affecting Putin directly, it's affecting his populace. He doesn't give a fuck about the populace at the moment.
No. He doesn't give a fuck about Ukrainian populace either.
Nope.
Anyway, we should move on to the next story. And seeing as we were talking about it, fuck it, we'll jump to the China story that we brought up. This is titled here, China signals willingness to give economic military aid to Russia for Ukrainian invasion, US says.
But China won't admit that it's an invasion.
No, technically it's not, according to the fucking... Even though it ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
We won't call it that. Allegedly. Alleged invasion. Right, the story goes on to say... The United States has warned China of the economic penalties and global isolation that Beijing would face if it helped Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. It comes as the European Union announced a fourth wave of sanctions against Russia. In a 7-hour meeting in Rome, US National Secretary Advisor Jake Sullivan raised concerns with Chinese diplomat Yang Jiechi about China's alignment with Russia. Their meeting took place as the US told allies in NATO and several Asian countries that China had... Sorry, I'm getting email notifications. China had signalled its willingness to provide military and economic aid to Russia to support its war, US officials said. The US message sent in diplomatic cable also noted that China was expected to deny those plans, said one of the officials, who was speaking on condition of anonymity. After the secretary talks ended, the White House issued a short statement noting that Mr. Sullivan had raised a range of issues in US-China relations with substantial discussion of Russia's war against Ukraine. State Department spokesman Ned Price said at a press conference in Washington that the US would be watching closely to see if China or any other country provided support for Russia. We have communicated very clearly to Beijing that we will not stand by, he said. We will not allow any country to compensate Russia for its losses. On Sunday local time, the US said that Russia had asked China for military equipment to help its special military operation. Russia has denied it asked China for military assistance and said it has sufficient military clout to fulfill all of its aims in Ukraine. Chinese Foreign Minister spokesperson Zhao Lijin described the reports that Russia was seeking military equipment from China as US disinformation. Officials of the United States and other countries have sought to make clear to China in recent weeks that siding with Russia could carry consequences for trade flows, development of new technologies and could expose it to secondary sanctions. So we have it right there. They're not doing fucking shit.
Yeah, we'll sanction you and make it a bit harsher on him, but that's about it.
And then once the war starts again, we'll fucking bring it all back because we have to level out fuel prices. Do you want to pay more for fuel still? No. Well, fucking Russia and China's sweet. There is obviously more to that article, a few more paragraphs, but I think that will do in covering that one. We'll move on to the second... Oh, not second. We'll move on to the next article here. Alright, moving on to petrol prices now. This is from the ABC News. It's titled, Petrol Prices Will Be Pushed Up by New Minimum Fuel Stock Laws, according to the watchdog, but the minister disagrees. And that's what you want. Disagreement in your ministers and watchdogs. Apparently that's good government, good business. Energy Minister Angus Taylor has denied new laws set to take effect in July with further increased petrol prices, despite contrary advice from the petrol price watchdog and his own department. From July, fuel importers and refiners will be required to maintain a minimum number of days' worth of fuel for national security purposes, after a decade of Australia falling short of its international fuel holding obligations. I imagine that has reference to how you were saying we had like stocks in America and whatnot. Apparently we haven't been stocking enough.
Yeah, we don't stock enough on our own soil.
Proposed regulations will mandate fuel companies hold at least 24 days worth of gasoline onshore, through the details including whether fuel on ships can be counted towards that are still being figured out. In January, Australia had 30 days worth of gasoline for cars according to the government data, though the nation has frequently fallen below proposed minimum levels in recent years. In its latest petrol price report, released earlier this week, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, said the new minimum stockholding obligations, the MSO, would increase costs for fuel importers that would likely be passed on at the pump. The MSO arrangements will impose additional costs on refiners and importers, the ACCC said. These costs may include building additional storage capacity and importing fuels more frequently, and industry participants faced with additional costs are likely to pass them on in the form of higher wholesale and retail fuel prices. It is important that the design of the MSO arrangements does not have adverse implications for fuel prices and competition. The federal government is already under pressure to soften record high petrol prices, which have rocketed past $2 a litre as countries drop their Russian oil imports and the world rebounds from COVID-19 restrictions. Yeah, by the looks of it, like Russia's going to win this war. While they sit there fucking putting on heaps of new COVID fucking restrictions, even though we're told not to worry about it. Yet worry about it. At the same time. And it's all just going to play very nicely into the hands of now you're all fucked. Good luck. Get to work.
I'm amazed that petrol prices jumped so high. I didn't think the quantity of oil and petrol we bought from Russia was that high. So, apparently.
Well, I think it's because of where it has to pass through as well. I mean, like I said, our petrol prices went up when fucking America pulled out of fucking the Middle East. Because all those fucking oil wells went back to, you know, opposing controlling parties who were going to put extra prices on it because fuck you. You know. We do what we want. We don't think the MSO will increase prices at all, Mr. Taylor said. The net impact of our fuel security measures is to make sure we have the fuel we need when we want it. What we're also doing is making sure at times when there would otherwise be shortages of oil, there's enough there that can be released onto the market that puts downward pressure on prices and creates competition. Get fucked. It goes along with some of the most absolute bullshit fucking statements I have ever read. This whole fucking competition bull fucking shit. We know that doesn't fucking happen anymore.
Competition of who can charge the most. It's not a competition of who can charge the most.
Well, like, you only have to look at Coles and Woolworths, and like they will have specials on the same shit on different days. And like petrol fucking companies, like, you know, every different service station will have different prices on different fucking days. So, you know, it is, even though it fucking appears to follow a bloody competition type scale, it's quite clearly fucking pre-planned. And absolute fucking crap. How can you have the fucking watchdog saying that fucking shit is not going to go down while you've got the actual fucking commissioner raising shit despite his own officer's fucking claims or like protests, and fucking then to turn around and say, oh no, competition, fucking capitalism, mate. Like, I do not want to sound like a commie. I do not think communism is fucking better than capitalism. But at the same time, I do not think capitalism is fucking quite on point. Like, we have gone way past communism into fucking... I mean, we've gone way past capitalism into fucking communist style fucking mandates. Like, you only have to look at the fucking monopoly laws dropping out all over the fucking world to show that that is the actual case. And then you got everyone here still fucking prancing on about how, like, oh no, competition. Fuck off. Every time I have seen that, like, every time a fucking government-owned facility like Telstra and fucking the power and shit has gone to a public company, it has gotten more expensive. And like, I cannot believe that we are still expected to sit here and swallow the absolute fucking bullshit tribe when they try and tell us that competition is what will drive the price down. Because there is no fucking regulation on that shit anymore. We've let it all fucking go. And we're still expected to sit here and fucking talk about the world as if it's 1990s. It's fucking not. It's nothing like that anymore. I'm going to leave that story there. That was off the ABC on MSN News. We will leave a link to the story as usual. And we'll jump on here to another petrol story as we're on the red. This is from the ABC News as well, but from their direct website. And it's titled, As Petrol Prices and the Cost of Living Rise, What If You Lost Your Job Tomorrow? Which is a fucking good question.
Well, what if you don't have a job at all? People on Centrelink don't expect to buy fuel for your car. You're not going to be able to afford it.
Yeah, they were talking about the pension increasing. We should probably cover that, but fucking I might cover that in another one because we're probably going to go over an hour here anyway. But they were talking about putting the pension up, but they're like, you know, this, you know, by their fucking calculations is still not going to compete near close with inflation.
What, so you don't bother at all?
No, well, they're still doing it, which is fucking good, but it's not enough of an increase to actually cover the inflation. You know, we work so fucking hard. Like, you know, people complain about people on Centrelink because they're like, oh, it's our tax dollars that fucking pay for it, rah, rah. But, like, that's the point. We worked fucking hard to cover the fucking population. Like, we had a great system. and it's just been
The whole
fucked.
point of Centrelink was so no one lived in poverty, but like everyone who's on Centrelink is still in poverty.
Especially since the fucking mining boom and the price of fucking rentals in rural fucking places, you know, near a mine is over $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
You know, like you go to fucking Port Douglas and shit, Port Hedland, sorry, in WA, and you know, like the Aboriginals and that, they literally sleep out in the bush still, because be fucked if any of them can afford a fucking house. I mean, you still got your housing commission fucking centres, but in rural places it's very fucking small. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous.
Anyway, this story reads, at the St. John's Crisis Centre in Surfers Paradise, times are always tough. The service provided about 33,000 free meals last year for people facing homelessness, but manager Diane Kazik said she has been seeing more people with homes, but they're just struggling. By coming to us, it means they can then pay their rent, pay their utility bills, she said. And these are people with homes. These are home owners.
Yeah, they just can't afford to feed themselves because they're paying fucking mortgage or paying fucking rates and shit that's way too high.
Yeah, and like if they are forced to leave those homes that they own, you know, you can't afford to rent and work. Like in a lot of places, like a lot of these people are like living on razor's edge, obviously, if they're going for free fucking meals just so they can pay their bills. And renting is fucking generally more expensive.
It's a lot more expensive than paying off a mortgage.
It's meant to be anyway. So if you come to us Monday to Friday, you would not need to fork out any money for food. The cost of living has been rising rapidly, with record high fuel prices set to push the price of everyday items such as groceries even higher. The housing market has been prohibitively, sorry, I can't pronounce that very well, competitive and unaffordable for many, a problem compounded by the loss of properties in recent floods. Even coffee has been tipped to reach $7 a cup by the end of the year. Jesus Christ.
Buy a whole fucking thing of fucking
It's
coffee.
like French roast for that. International roast, whatever. If you lost your job tomorrow, how long would it be until you were going, I can't pay my mortgage, I can't pay the rent? Miss Kozik said. They don't even think how easily it could happen to them. There are a lot more people living in their cars, families, than there were a year ago. But Diane Kozik said she was really concerned about interest rates. There have been a lot of people that have gone out there and have bought a property on a really low interest rate, and geez, it only needs to double, she said. It does sound bleak. Queensland Council of Social Service Chief Executive Amy McVeigh said the rising cost of living does sound very bleak. Not only are people coming out of the shock of 2 years of a pandemic to be hit by a flood and now to be facing increased costs. In its 2021 Living Affordably report, QCOSS found that housing accounted for between 33 and 46% of the weekly budget for people on low incomes across the Gold Coast. Oh, fucking hell, of course across the Gold Coast. But that's pretty well across anywhere.
Yeah, 50% is about your average. I think the Housing Commission charges you 25% a week on your Centrelink wage, which in a fortnight, which is what you get paid on Centrelink, is 50% of your fortnightly wage. So that's 50%.
About 50% straight on rent before you fucking get anything else. Miss McVeigh said low income earners would be acutely affected by fuel prices. What we mean by this is keeping a roof over your head, 3 meals on the table, taking your kids to the doctor, and having a little money in the bank for those emergencies that come up along, she said. And this is it. This is what the average household in Australia is fucking hoping they can fucking afford. And we used to be the country that had 2 cars and a boat.
Yeah, nah, not anymore. That's gone right out the fucking window.
You know,
Good
fucking...
idea to have a car, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll still fucking defend this shit. We'll still fucking defend these decisions that are made. No one could say anything wrong because they did their best. Fuck these cunts. When you see the reports that clearly tell them the opposite is going to happen to what they like, there's a saying that I brought up on here before, and fuck it, if you cannot understand how something reached its outcome, look at the outcome and work backwards and see if that outcome was actually what was intended, because it's never what's said in the first place. But you can see all the changes that lead to what fucking ends up occurring. And it's like, if you can't believe what's said, you can only believe what happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important fucking thought to have. You'll have people going, oh, you know, it's too expensive to live on Centrelink, and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, we had to go through this and this and this, and it's like, well, that's exactly right, we had to go through this and this and this, but it was still the government's fucking responsibility to keep up the fucking management of the country. And if we were going to be losing this shit, it should have been spoken a bit, like, we should have had fucking internal discussions, not just, oi, use a fucked, deal with it type shit. Right, there's a subheading here that says, housing a constant problem. It reads, median vacancy rates remain below 1% on the Gold Coast, according to SQM research, with about 3% considered balanced. Miss McVeigh said, we're expecting the housing crisis that we're experiencing in Queensland is only going to get a lot worse. Rising rent prices, pressure on your social housing register, and almost no rental availability. Miss McVeigh said about 150,000 people on the Gold Coast relied in some form of income support. There are just over 3,000 families on the social housing register, and about 2/3 of those families have a person with disability, she said. If you're on the social housing register, the average wait time is about 4 years. And that's the largest in any area in Queensland. How long did it take you to hear back about your unit back in the day in AMwtL?
I signed up for it when I hit 18, and I didn't hear back about it until I was 21. So
3 years.
3 years.
Okay. That's a lot of time to be living fucking...
Being homeless and couch surfing and shit, yeah, it's amazing times.
Yeah. It's really... like, when you think about it, we're not completely homeless. Or at least I have been.
I've been homeless. Slept on the street heaps. It's great. It's amazing. Slept in the car. Used to use that B2000 as a fucking house. It's awesome. No mattress, but just on a steel fucking bed.
I was going to end that here, but the last couple of sentences seem to be the last of the story here. It's subtitled, Government Seeks Innovative Solutions. It says the state government has committed $2.9 billion to increase the supply of social housing over the next 4 years, with plans to build 7,400 new dwellings.
2.9 billion for 7,400 dwellings. That's a lot of money for that small amount of homes.
Yeah, let's bring up the calculator here for a sec. Calculator, alright. 7,400. Alright, let's say your average will be real generous, let's say 120,000.
Which is a pretty good home on housing.
Times 7.4. Let's see what we end up at.
800,000. Exactly. Do 2.9 billion divided by 7.4 thousand.
Alright. 2.9 billion. 2... 9... What's that?
Keep going until the next one. Oh, wait, yeah, billion, yeah. Next
No,
one.
that's only a million.
Yeah, next one. One more. No, too many.
One back.
One back.
29. Oh,
2.9.
yeah, we're on 2.9. Yeah, alright.
Divided by 7,400.
By 7,400 equals...
391,000 per house. Almost $400,000 house. $400,000 homes. Most of them aren't going to be homes. Most of them are going to be like what I was living in, them single or 2-bedroom units.
Yeah. They're like 400,000, you know, they do like the thing you generally hear, like as a sort of average when it comes to government construction compared to your private sector is about double.
Yeah.
So that's still 200,000 a house, but which is probably fucking fairly close to the standard market, but still, you know, that's a lot of money going to fucking overseas. They could squeeze an easy another 600 houses out of that. Yeah, it says, continuing here, Housing Minister Leanne Enoch said the broader housing market has been under additional pressure from high levels of interstate migration, because there's only jobs in certain places. Before this major flood in brackets event, we were seeing housing stress right across the state, Miss Enoch said on the Gold Coast last week. Innovative solutions are what we're looking for. Everything from whether it's relocatable homes, everything from the granny flat situation. What are the planning laws that local councils have in place that might prevent those innovative ideas moving forward? How do we fast track some of those bills we were already putting in place with regards to social and affordable homes? Already putting in place. Of course you were. Yeah, we were onto it. We almost had this fixed. Would have been sweet. Fucking floods and COVID. Tell you what.
Natural disasters are only going to continue to happen too.
Yeah. What other stories we got here? We got the Australian Fijian troops, and oh yes, the students having to redo their grade because of sorcery. We'll leave that for the last one. Just a little, what seems to be a humorous story anyway. We haven't really read it. All right, on to the. All right, reaching the end here. We're on the second last story. This is entitled from abcnews.com or .au. It's Australian and Fijian troops to train together following opening of new Black Rock camp in Fiji. My scroll isn't working. There we go. Right. Australian troops will travel to Fiji next month for the first joint training exercises to be conducted at the newly expanded Black Rock military camp. It's expanded, and this is the first joint training. So we've just been there until
That's just
now.
so that Aussies could go for a holiday while they're fucking travelling around.
Yeah, we'll rebuild a hut if it fucking has a cyclone. Yeah, mad cunts. The federal government has plunged about $100 million into expanding and redeveloping the facility, which is emerging as a key strategic asset in the Pacific. Emerging.
No, it wasn't.
They were always fucking key assets. Fuck's sake. Seriously, these cunts been living in World War II movies this whole time. He was like, radar? We only came up with that a couple of months ago. Fucking that was the British. Fucking good lads. They invented the computer, then sold it. Got nothing out of it. Nailed it. Fucking dicks. People will be dumb. Anyway, the new camp was formally opened yesterday by Fiji's Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama and Australia's Minister for the Pacific, Zed Cecilia. Australia outbid China to secure the right to finance the project back in 2018, when strategic competition in the region was beginning to intensify. How is this a fucking bid? Like, we've been there on Fiji's side for fucking years.
Yeah, but if China gave them a good amount of money.
Yeah, I suppose we only send fucking tourists there to get drunk and call them fuckheads.
Yeah.
Hey, you fuzzy boy. While BlackRock will primarily be used for training the Fijian military, both countries have flagged the other Pacific island nations that will also be invited to conduct training exercises at the facility. It will also be used as a base for humanitarian and disaster relief missions, which means military personnel from Australia and New Zealand, as well as other Pacific nations, are likely to use the facility as a hub when responding to natural disasters. The first joint training exercise will be held next month, with Australian personnel heading to BlackRock to undertake a United Nations peacekeeping course focused on the protection of civilians in conflict with their Fijian counterparts. The course is a pilot and could be expanded to take on other Pacific Island nations in the future. Fijian officials and politicians have made it clear that another key focus will be responding to natural disasters, including cyclones and storms, which are rapidly intensifying due to climate change.
No, what you're talking about doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen any real fucking changes in the weather. I mean, we've had the biggest flood ever since on fucking record. But that was bound to happen. It's been 54 years.
Just quoting one of our prime ministers there.
But legit, the fucking Point Break told us about the 50-year storm. Fucking known about this shit for a while. Frank Bainimarama said yesterday that BlackRock would serve as the regional launching pad for joint developments that put Fijian and Australian troops at the front line of the climate war raging throughout the Pacific. Minister for International Development and the Pacific, Zed Cecilia, told the ABC that Fiji's government would make the final decisions about how the camp would operate, but there was great potential to expand its use. From my discussions with the Fijian government, they are very keen to use this as a facility that does see military personnel and other countries in the region, including Australia but also others, come and have the opportunity to train, but also have the opportunity to potentially deploy Senator Cecilia said. Australian government ministers have repeatedly denied that they've funded BlackRock purely to block China from gaining a potential military foothold in the region.
Fuck, I would.
Yeah, fucking oath. That was a worthy investment. We do not want, like, this is what I spoke...
They already get half of PNG.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, they're fucking... God, we are losing ground and we haven't even entered a fight yet. But Australian officials and politicians have also repeatedly made it clear that they want to ensure Australia remains the first choice for the Pacific when it comes to security cooperation, which is fucking on point. That's what we fucking want. But if I was one of them like island nations and you had China and Australia saying like we'll support you and like we'll support you, I'd aim towards China, no worries. We've only got a military of fucking under, like they're planning to expand it to 70,000, I think, by 20 something.
Yeah, but aren't we only at like 30 or 40,000 at the moment?
Yeah, I thought it was 45 or something to that effect, which is sweet fuck all compared to almost everyone else. I mean, we got cities with more people in it than that.
Yeah, Tamworth's got more people in it than that.
Fucking just ridiculous. We might leave that there. I just wanted to note some shit that was going on between Fiji and Australia. This stuff is still happening, regardless of Ukrainian wars and whatnot. We are still in struggles very close to our own border, which are extremely important. Now we're on to the last story here. Now this story relates to a PNG school. It's titled Remote PNG School Students Abandoned as Village Violence Stops Teachers Showing Up, headmaster says. Now that is completely different to the title of the story that we clicked on.
Yep.
The title of the story that we clicked on made reference to a group of, I think, Year 8 students having to repeat their year under fears of sorcery. Which makes me wonder whether they've been trying to sell their souls for grades or something. Reading on here, the story goes to say, hundreds of students in a remote Papua New Guinean school have been stuck repeating the same grade for 8 years because teachers are not showing up to work, community leaders say. Well, that's still different again. I guess like they said the 8 years thing, so it's not year 8, it's that they've been doing the same grade for 8 years. But I don't see how that relates to sorcery. We'll read on here, it might come up again. Cedric Agarope is a former student of the state-run Jangit Primary School, located in PNG's East Sepik province. But he did not make it past year 3. Now the 25-year-old can do little more than count and write his name. We didn't learn anything, he said. Now I'm a grown man and should be married, and I don't know how to read or write. Mr. Agarope enrolled in Year 3 in 2014 when he was 17 years old, but was unable to continue studying when teachers stopped showing up to class. New teachers were not brought in to replace them, so students spent the remainder of the year at home, often finishing gardening or hunting for their families.
Fishing.
Mr. Agarope re-enrolled in the same grade for 5 years in a row, but each time the same thing happened. Despite being interested and engaging in learning, Mr. Agarope was never able to move forward with his schooling, and in 2019 he dropped out. The ABC cited a letter sent in January to the provincial educational body, East Sepik Division of Education, which was signed by the 8 community leaders, including the village magistrate. The letter raised concerns about teacher absenteeism at Jangit Primary School. These concerns were not passed on to PNG's National Teaching Commission, which said it had only recently become aware of the alleged behaviour at the school following local media reports. PNG's Teaching Service Commission, which employs public school teachers across the country, is now investigating the school and others in the area. Imagine them priests still getting paid.
Yeah, that's what they would have been doing. They
Yeah.
would have just not been showing up and getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Fucking, oh yeah, we're teaching these kids.
Yeah.
Teaching them how not
It's so hard to teach these kids. They don't listen. I mean, I'm yelling from my house in northern PNG. But they can't hear. Our children aren't learning, a subheading says. Local councillor Max Ockham, Mr. Agarope's uncle, said the problems at the school started in 2014 when a new headmaster was appointed. He claimed the headmaster and teachers would turn up at the start of each year and sign their contracts to work, but then would all disappear within weeks.
Yeah, not there just to fucking get paid and fucking see you later. Not even showing up. Just, yeah, we signed our contract, we're doing our hours.
I wonder if the headmaster's knocking them off. He alleged that some would get other jobs in a nearby town while still being paid to teach at Zhanga Primary School. As a result, most of our children for the last 8 years have not been in school, he said. Every year they've been repeating the same grades, and that is why we have a huge literacy gap. Eric Oriwal, a parent and the treasurer of the primary school, said his son and daughter were both unable to finish school due to staffing issues. Our children are interested in going to school, but the headmaster and teachers don't turn up. It's a big problem, Mr. Oriwal said. We feel really disappointed that our children aren't learning. C.R. Ockham said also claimed the headmaster was the first one to leave each year and the other teachers would follow. We hardly have any teachers. When the head teacher goes, they all go, Mr. Ockham said. The headmaster, subheading here, headmaster says teachers are scared away. We might be getting into the sorcery problem here. The school's headmaster, Noah Agregum, paints a different picture. Although he agreed the staff shortages had been a chronic issue and children were being held back, he said violence and tribal fighting had forced teachers to flee the village each year since 2018 and not return until the next year out of fear for their safety. They leave the place and they have to go and get shelter. That's the normal way of doing things, he said. We have not completed even one calendar year. Mr. Agregum denied claims that he was absent from the school and said when other teachers fled, he stayed in the village to keep the school running as best that he could. Prior to 2018, Mr. Agregum said teachers were appointed to the school, but some did not show up because the village was remote. Why take the job? Those who did take up the positions usually left within a few months, Mr. Agregum alleges, because they were not being paid properly and were concerned about being poisoned from sorcery.
You're teaching people at school and you think sorcery is going to kill you.
This is PNG. The ABC has reached out to the East Sepik Division of Education for comment. Beliefs relating to sorcery have long held in PNG culture, particularly in the highlands, and community members who are accused of witchcraft can be violently attacked, tortured, and killed. Accusations of sorcery can be prompted by a sudden or unexplained death of someone. If those grieving the death become convinced that the supernatural powers of some among them was the cause, the suspected individual can be targeted. Traditionally, the cultural belief did not involve violence, but in the past 15 years, instances of sorcery accusation-related violence have increased and have spread to other villages around PNG. Mr. Agregum said some teachers remained on the school's payroll, administered by the East Sepik Division of Education, while they were absent, but did not comment on whether they did other work. A local of Janga village, Mr. Agregum, said he was the only staff member at the school for the first 4 years of his tenure. What I actually did during those first 4 years was engaged a few grade 10 volunteers who helped to teach elementary classes, he said. He also said the school had been closed completely for 10 years between 2002 and 2012 due to a sorcery-related matter.
Murder. That's it.
Murder, sorry.
Even worse.
The ABC was unable to verify this. This seems like an absolute crock of
Yeah,
shit.
it's just a raw thing. We paid all our teachers and that. We made sure they didn't come because, like, we told them there was sorcery around.
Yeah. I am completely open to the fucking social impact that religion and sorcery could possibly have on a fucking developing country and populace, but this seems like an absolute crock of shit.
Taking advantage of it.
Like, every date that he is named, like, old mate was saying that he hasn't had, like, his son hasn't had teachers since 2014. But all these dates stop at 2012 and then start again back at 2018. That whole fucking 6 years in between, where there seemed to have been very little complaints of sorcery or, you know, whatever, still had the teachers fucking disappearing. So it just seems like they've come up with some excuse that they can put on the fucking paperwork that is remotely plausible and non-verifiable by any means. How are you fucking verifying that shit? No, my fucking... Yeah, my auntie wears a headdress now and dresses like a chicken. Oh no, fucking... had nothing to do with it. Just fucking happened. Sorcery. She just picked the young fella up from school. There was a Easter bonnet parade that weekend, but yeah, we just sorcery.
It had to be sorcery.
Sorcery.
So we didn't come back till next year, so.
I think we're going to leave that there because that is quite obviously a crock of shit. If anyone would like us to discuss more in depth why we believe that the PNG fucking schools are not affected by outright sorcery, and perhaps it is the issue with fucking their president, or whatever the fuck it's called, let us know in the comments. Leave us a like. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We didn't totally cover anything specifically regarding to the war in Ukraine, but a lot of it is an offshoot of the effects.
Such as the petrol housing prices and all that.
And China's whole actions, and America telling them they're going to do fuck all.
Yeah, we'll give you sanctions just like we gave Russia.
Even though, like, and I have covered it in a previous podcast. This is why I know I can fucking bring it up. But, like, China and Russia came out before the war saying that they were going to attempt to create their own fucking economy. So any sanctions we put on them is not going to matter because they're completely capable of feeding their own fucking people and surviving without any fucking help from outside nations.
Which is what every nation should be able to do anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you might get the few fucking smaller nations that don't have enough oil reserves and that sort of shit. And I mean, like, we don't have refineries and all, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, we can't refine our oil. We've got our own actual reserves. Like, we've got oil fields in Australia, but we don't tap into them.
BP does.
No, they're offshore, not onshore.
They don't have any onshore?
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they're all offshore oil.
Yeah. There you go. I don't really know much about the ins and outs of BP.
I just know a lot about oil because I like cars. Gotta know where the petrol's coming from.
This is important. It's kind of like the fuel and the building block. I mean, of course you have to build an engine around it, but
Combustion engine's been around for 100 years now.
a little bit over that. They had fucking, you know, they had submarines in the Civil War.
Which Civil War?
American.
Yeah, probably.
Crazy. Crazy, man.
Well, war does indicate technological advances and shit.
Well, thank you, lords and ladies, and until next time.